Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here is Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall. He is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, happy Saturday. How you doing?
Very good. He is the host of the show with yours truly. We talk taxes every week. And, Jeff, you are, full disclosure, you're my tax guy.
Yes.
And we even have dabbled into a little financial planning.
A little bit, yes.
As my wife has hit open enrollment, and we are trying to maximize our retirement as we move forward. I've got plenty of time.
Yes.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
As you like to say, I said I wanted to retire at 65. You said, well, I've seen your financials, probably more like 75. You keep moving that goalpost back.
That's right.
But if someone is even a little bit older and maybe they're looking at retirement in 5, 3, 2 years from now, you can kind of sit down with them and start explaining their taxes.
What you need to do to worry about taxes and retirement. What the next step would be to basically kind of build out maybe a 2 or 3 or 5 year window. Probably really don't want to go past that because we don't know where tax rates are going to be. But what you'd actually do is kind of say, here's your strategy going forward. If you retire, it's your taxes in retirement. Nobody really pays attention to that until they get there. So what does your required minimum distribution and Social Security look like on a tax return? And no one would know that because it would be totally different from what you have today.
Absolutely. And this is probably something that we want to look at today, not tomorrow.
Yes, because depending upon your adjusted gross income, married, filing jointly, single, so on and so forth, either 50% or 80% of your Social Security could be taxable to you in retirement. And what I mean by that is if you're at full retirement age.
Social Security is supposed to be non-taxed.
Well, not hypothetically, but
hypothetically, yes.
In the first, I guess that was Reagan's administration, they said, hey, if you make more than $30,000 a year, we're going to charge you 5% taxable. And each administration has piled on since then, and it's either, depending upon your income level, it's either 50 or 80%.
Now, when they say if you make more than $30,000 a year in income, your Social Security is going to be taxed. Is your Social Security part of that $30,000?
Well, technically, yes.
Right.
The taxable. So that's where you get into this weird modified adjusted gross income, and everybody's like, what? All that is your adjusted gross income with the non-taxable portion of your Social Security added back into it. So, yes, it is part of it, maybe a limited part. But once you step over that threshold, so if you make less than that, you don't have to worry about paying taxes on your Social Security. But let's say you go into retirement and you have Social Security coming in and you got a $50,000 RMD, required minimum distribution, showing up. Poof, all of a sudden, 80% of your Social Security is in the taxable column.
Yeah, and so, it doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Though. So when we talk about paying voluntary taxes, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
And I think the biggest takeaway, I always say this, the biggest takeaway from what we just said over the last 2 minutes is this is really complicated.
It gets very complicated, unfortunately.
And there's almost no way we can do this ourselves.
Unless you had some software and you know how the taxes are applied as we go forward.
Yeah. There's just too much math involved. There's too many different quotients that could happen.
Yes, there's many different little side effects that take place.
And the things that I have in retirement aren't going to be the exact same things as you have as someone else has.
Somebody may be a little bit different here or there. And one of the big things that some people overlook, and this is something to pay attention to, is your basically if you're over 65 and you're trying to do this planning, Medicare premiums, okay? So if your income is, I'll say, normal, you pay about $100, I think it's, don't quote me on this number, $170 a month or something like that for Medicare. but it's actually income-based is what it really is. So if you go into first year of Medicare, you're like, oh, I'm great. And then sneakily what comes in on the backside is that required minimum distribution a couple of years later. And all of a sudden, boom, your Medicare premiums go up. And you actually could get as high as, you'd have to be way up there in the income spectrum, but you can get up to $588 a month for a Medicare premium, which a lot of people don't pay attention to, or they take a chunk of money out of their IRA. The only exemption to this is basically if you sell a business. That's the only way that you could get an exemption where they will not raise your Medicare premiums that following year, which then runs 12 months until you file your next return. And then if it goes down, you're okay. If it stays up, then you keep paying it. So something that a lot of people just overlook big time.
And like if I were going to sit down and maybe I have at my disposal a couple of things. I listen to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I've got a couple of things in my back pocket. Maybe I'll leave out the Medicare stuff, and then that throws a wrench in the gears.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just something that you need to take all these little pieces of the equation, put it together, which then will allow you to plan back out as you go forward.
So even trying my best, I might end up, making a mistake, leaving something out, omitting some information just because I don't know.
Yeah. You didn't know that, hey, that was going to be taxable, or only a part of this is taxable, or it's all taxable. So, yeah.
And what age do you want someone to come in?
Honestly, from a tax planning standpoint, 55-ish is your good jumping off point to really seriously break into here's what your retirement planning looks like. Here's, tax angles look like.
Let's see where you are right now.
Exactly.
We can start making a 5 to 10 year plan.
Exactly. Typically, most people say, hey, I want out at 62.
5 to 7 year plan.
Yeah. But really 62 doesn't correlate sometimes with a lot of people. So really, it's
you still might pay for your own insurance.
Exactly. That's the killer. The killer is if you bail at 62, unless you have some guaranteed, retiree program for health care, the average person won't get Medicare till 65, and that's typically the jumping off point.
Yeah.
Because you might end up spending $1,000 a month to hold that as you go forward.
Now, I am 41. What happens if I come in and talk to you and say, hey, let's start planning my retirement taxes?
So we're really not planning the retirement taxes. What we're looking at is the accumulation to get you to retirement.
Still in the accumulation phase.
Yes. And you still, in 55, you'd still be in the accumulation. You'd be heavy accumulation stage.
But now it's time to talk both.
But it's both at that point in time. Okay. To say, all right, you're putting money in an IRA. Should it be split between an IRA and a Roth? And here's why, so on, that kind of stuff.
And most people have a money guy. Most people have an accumulation guy. But I can't imagine that person is also on the tax side as well.
Typically, that's how people come in and they're like, hey, I got XYZ over here for my finance guy, but nobody knows taxes, and they tell me to consult a tax advisor.
Yeah.
We're going to take both of them and compress them into
both.
Yes. So we want your tax return to talk to your investments, and your investments talk to your tax return.
Senior tax strategist and wealth advisor. Yes. That's where you do both, and you can have one-stop shopping.
Yes.
Why make two people involved in this conversation when you can just have one? That is the point. The point of the show, to keep more of your money in your pocket. When you pay those voluntary taxes, that means that you're paying taxes that you didn't have to.
Exactly.
And that money could be put in your pocket. It could go for the boat. It could go for the pool. It could go for the condo in Florida. It can go to the condo at the lake. Any money, you can go for a nice steak dinner.
Yeah.
Anything that you're able to keep in your pocket and away from the federal government. This isn't a battle of wills.
Legally.
Legally. That's what I'm saying. It's not like we have to say, I'm going to challenge the government on this, rah, rah, rah. It's just using.
Don't play that game.
The tax code.
To your advantage.
They wrote it in a way that probably benefits rich people and corporations more.
Yes, but no, because there's stuff out there for middle America. that just people don't understand what's in the tax law.
I haven't read it. Yeah. You've read,
and it's a dry read.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be in the right mood to read a tax book.
Let's get the fire going. Open up a bottle of wine.
No, because you'd be like
the tax code.
And be sleeping in 10 minutes.
Read through it, but you did write the book. Keep What's Yours. It's a little handy guide to kind of starting the conversation.
Yeah, just give you some of the stuff that's out there, and some of it might be a little extreme for most people. And I say extreme, it just won't apply to you. Mm-hmm. And there's other stuff that's your bread and butter as you go forward.
Oh, this is me. You know, I dog ear that page. Oh, that's me. I'll dog ear that page. Bring the book in to you and say, I want to look into these things and incorporating these things into my life.
Yes.
And to get the book, you can get it for free just by going to the website.
Exactly.
CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. There's a little button there that says, give me my book.
Give me my book.
Free book. And just click on it, and they'll mail it out to you. And you can start the process. Now, just because we know that these things exist doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to implement them.
Exactly.
Into our HR, into our, every 2-week paycheck.
Yes.
Into our retirement plan. But that's where you can come in and you can help us out.
Exactly.
With the implementation. So you've got the information, you've got the implementation, and you got both the tax side and the wealth accumulation side. So Jeff's got it all. What's the phone number that we can call?
636-394-5524.
636-394-5524. Call now and just kind of leave a message and say, hey, it's the weekend. I know.
Yeah, we'll call you Monday.
Maybe you're not there, but I want to get on the schedule. I want to come see you. I want to get this stuff rolling, the ball rolling. That's the biggest problem is giving that first push.
Exactly. We can do these conversations by phone. We can do the conversations by a Zoom call. You can come in the office. So we'll do pretty much anything to kind of get the wheels in motion in a sense. Mm-hmm. So most people will do a phone call first, make sure it's a fit, and then do a sit down a couple weeks later and go from there.
Okay. Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. The number one more time, 636-394-5524. Get the ball rolling. We're going to go to commercial break, but when we come back, crypto.
Yay.
It's one of the biggest things in the financial papers right now.
That nobody understands.
And it's imploding.
Yes, it could turn out bad.
Yeah. So let's get talking about it. It's going to be taxed now from the federal government, so we need to know that. If we're involved in it, we need to know that we're going to get a tax bill part of it. So we'll get into the whole thing on the other side of this. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the Big 550, back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. He is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Here's the number again, 636-394-5524. And throughout the week, Jeff, people text us during the Heidi Show and say, oh, what was the number of Jeff Zufall? How do I get in touch with him? CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. And here's the number, 636-394-5524, because you have an accumulation stage. And then you have a distribution stage, which comes with a bunch of taxes.
A bunch.
That you've put off.
Yes.
It's like, I'll deal with the taxes later.
Well,
here's later.
Sometimes that could be an issue, and it could be an issue because you may be in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
Again, so the theory is,
And later doesn't necessarily mean 65
exactly.
or the year I'm retiring. You need to deal with taxes later, as in at 55.
Yes.
Give yourself a 5, 7, 10-year
jump.
Running start.
At least have an idea on where you will be, and then say, I'll plan based upon taxes. So, maybe it's you put more money in a Roth. Maybe you put more in pre-tax. And each person's different when we get there.
Right. So. And so I would think that the idea into putting a money into a pre-tax IRA is to say, I want to be strategic about paying these taxes.
Exactly. So the concept, the easiest way to look at it is, let's say that you're sitting today in a 24% tax bracket, and you go, hey, I think when I retire, if we do this calculation correctly, yes, your income will come down a bit, but maybe you could survive on a 12% tax bracket. So you would defer the money at 24%,
rather
take
than,
it out at 12%.
Yeah, pay at 24%, you're paying 12%.
Exactly.
And that's the plan.
That's the plan, to figure out what, and typically what hangs most people up, and everybody, if you've done this before, don't beat up yourself, is a budget. And the budget, again, if you're 55 and I said to you, hey, what are you going to spend in retirement? You have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 10 years in the future, 8 years in the future. But again, take it and say, all right, if I wasn't working, this is what my budget would hypothetically look like. And what you'll see where it comes down a little bit, again, it's not as cut and dried as a 50% reduction, but in some cases it is. So that's what you're looking for.
And I am 41, and I want to retire at 65. Let's just pie in the sky 65.
66.
Okay, fine.
Teasing.
Jeff's seen my finances. He wants me to be a little bit more realistic. I'll retire at 66. I need to sit down at 55 and say, okay, this was the plan. Is it still going?
Exactly?
Is it still going accordingly?
It's a line in the sand, basically, saying, "Hey, did I make
changed?
it there?"
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff that could take place. Tax law changes, which we wouldn't even know about until
5 years
we
ago.
get there.
It was different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the question. You go, is it for the better, for the worse? And it just depends.
Yeah. So you have to get a plan in place when you start saving for retirement, and you have to have a plan in place when you're actually retired, but somewhere in between there, you need to make adjustments.
And when we say plan, it's not, a 55-page document that you have to follow daily. It's just a concept going forward to say, hey, this is the range. If you say I'm not going to retire till I'm 70, and you're 55, that's way off down the road. So that's where you just kind of start to generalize a little bit to get there.
Now, I would say that I am a bit of a know-it-all. I'll admit that. So I come up with all these ideas, and my sister, who is a math major, comes in and says, well, have you ever done the math on this plan of yours?
Yes.
Well, no, but, it sounds good. And then she'll sit down and do the math. And once the numbers actually start crunching,
then it's a new ball game, and you go,
realize,
wait a minute.
Okay.
Yes.
My beautiful get-rich-quick scheme
just blew up.
Just fizzled because I wasn't counting X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And that kind of is where Jeff is.
Exactly.
Where you can say, this is kind of what I want to do, and Jeff will start crunching the numbers for you and say, this is the reality.
The reality
of
is
your idea. Let me recommend.
Yeah. Maybe you can't retire when you want to. Maybe you have to work 2 extra years. The issue today, the things that are out there that we have no control over, is market returns. If you're basing retirement off of X% per year, 2022 didn't help you.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up terrible this year. And then tax law changes, you have no idea. Health, there's a whole bunch of variables that get built into these plans as you go forward that you at least kind of look at.
Yeah. So let's talk about the crazy things that can happen between now and retirement and dip our toe into crypto.
Yes. Yes. Ooh. So this might get interesting.
Yeah.
Might get very interesting. And it's kind of weird because right now, FTX basically a week ago Friday claimed bankruptcy.
Yeah. Now, FTX, this is, I've heard of Coinbase.
Yeah, it's just another, there's Coinbase, there's Bitcoin. Like
a crypto wallet. I can put real money into it and then start changing inside. It's an exchange. I can put my money into Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever.
So let me back up just a touch, just to kind of set the stage. So the last 3 years on your tax returns, whether you realize this or not, there's been a question. And the question is, did you ever participate in digital currency? And it's yes or no. They don't ask any details, just yes or no. So if FTX really does claim bankruptcy, which it looks like it's pretty much a done deal, what's going to take place is everybody that had money in FTX now becomes a creditor, and in bankruptcy court, their names are released.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you said on your tax return...
Is that how that works?
That's how it works. That's how the IRS is going to figure this out.
If you said on your tax return, no, I did not participate in crypto, and now you're part of this bankruptcy
part of the
filing.
Bankruptcy. Your name's going to be listed.
Cow.
So the IRS will have the answers to the test.
And here we try to talk the news and we try to stay out of the politics of things because there's no point in getting involved in the politics. We deal in the numbers.
Yeah.
We deal after the bill gets passed. We deal in that,
Yes.
But there is money going into the IRS. We've said it many times on this show, into the investigative side,
Yes.
into the
So
kind of tracking down tax cheats.
Exactly. So the way that they're looking at this is it's still the Wild West, because there's no, I'll say, governance, from a standpoint where security, stocks, mutual funds, bonds all fall under some guidance. SEC, FINRA, somebody's got, a handle on what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot say. The problem with crypto is it's never really been out there. But the funny part is this, I'll say, kid, he's 28, 29.
Oh, this FTX, he's got the big hair.
Big hair.
Yeah.
He's apparently been talking with the SEC for the last 6 months, which is Securities and Exchange Commission. Whether he's building, helping
the
build.
police of our,
the
money economy.
FBI of the
of the
securities world.
Yeah.
So the question is was he helping build maybe rules and regulations? Nobody really knows yet. They haven't said. But apparently he's been talking to him the whole time when he was running what's going to turn out to be a huge Ponzi scheme.
Oh.
So
will this guy go to jail? All right, let's talk about what happened. So FTX is an exchange. You put your money in, and they convert it to cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin or the dog one.
Exactly,
or
whatever you want it to be.
Whatever.
Yes.
And what he was doing with it is he was taking your actual money.
Cash. Yes.
Putting, saying that, much like a bank, when I look at my bank statements, it says, $60.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It says $60, but that money's not necessarily in a drawer that says Josh on it.
So the difference is this, is a bank is regulated by the U.S. Treasury, or credit unions, one or the other. FDIC's in there, SPIC, all that fun stuff. But the trick to it is...
If the bank went down, I could get what? Up to $250,000 insurance.
Yes. So the way to look at it is most people go, well, hey, that's what the Federal Reserve does. If you give them $1, they're going to make that dollar into $10 and basically loan it back out to a bunch of different national banks, who then in turn are going to loan it to a whole bunch of different people. And you go, wait a minute, they're multiplying dollars. But the problem, or I should say the trick with the banking industry is the Federal Reserve will watch. If there's a run on a bank, they will actually pump money to it to keep it from going down. So they did that in 2008. They were really, really diligent on watching.
Oh, too big to fail.
Yeah, too big to fail. So if they saw a run on a certain bank in a certain neighborhood or a certain region, they just flooded those banks with extra cash.
Propped it up.
Yeah, and kept it toward, then there was you never heard through 2008, even though we were like right on the verge of your debit card not working, but they kept it to where the banking system functioned.
So the idea of a bank, it's protected by insurance, it's backed by the government, it's highly regulated. Obviously,
yes.
They're not just going to let you go give your money to someone and let them
try and get a loan from a bank today. You'll see the hoops you have to jump through.
Highly regulated.
Because they just have to have everything buttoned down.
But they'll take my money and turn around and make investments in it or loan it out in the form of mortgages for someone else.
Exactly.
They use my money, but when I come back, they've got a stockpile, and I say, I want my $60 back. It's there.
So if you went to the bank, if everybody went to the bank tomorrow,
right,
you wouldn't get your money.
It's a wonderful life.
Yeah,
I don't have your money. It's in Fred's house,
exactly.
Bill's house.
Exactly. The first 15 or 20% probably could get their cash. Everybody else is out. And that would be a definition of a bank run.
Right.
So then the feds would pump money to that bank, and everything would be okay the next day.
Does the bank eventually have to pay that money back?
Yeah, that's where you get in overnight lending between banks and all kinds of stuff, and that's what the Fed does on a regular basis.
The idea is that people bring $100,000 to the bank doesn't have $100,000 in their vault.
No, so you walk in and you deposit $100,000 in your bank account, in your checking account, and when you're walking out, that guy you bump into, he's coming in to borrow $60,000 to buy a new car.
Yeah.
So the banks then turn around and loan, and they're going to pay you 2% for your $100,000. They're going to charge him 7% for his auto loan. That's how they make money.
The banks make money. I theoretically make money. Everybody's making money. So what this guy at FTX was doing, from what I can understand, was taking our money, $100 million, and then turning around, and rather than loaning it out for mortgages or loaning it out for car loans or something safe, they were turning around and reinvesting that into incredibly risky investments.
Yes.
And they lost their shirt.
And then some.
And then some.
Yes. So it hasn't come out completely just yet because they're trying to put the pieces of this together. But it's probably to the tune of $35 billion is what this is going to be.
God. So when I came back and said, I want to take my Bitcoin, reconvert that back into dollars and take my money out,
they're going to say,
the guy with the weird hair is going to say, I don't have your money. It's in Fred's house.
Exactly.
Bill's house.
Exactly. To a T.
But since it is a crypto exchange,
yes,
it is not regulated the way the banks are. And am I out of my money?
Yes. That's what they're saying.
Man.
So the fear, and I guess maybe this is kind of where it's kind of in the financial world, this is like, ongoing saga. But the question of the day is FTX going to take anybody else with them? Because if they were doing it, who are the other people doing it? And unfortunately, it's the Wild West of the investment world because the IRS and/or the SEC or FINRA have never really imposed those true restrictions on them.
So if there aren't restrictions on them, if the laws are still trying to play catch up with crypto exchanges, is this guy going to see jail time?
There was a interview with I won't say who he was, but a congressperson out of California, and the question posed to him was, "Hey, can you find this guy?" And his response was, "Oh, he's very difficult to find," and it was real elusive. And again, because what it turns out is, without getting political, this kid was smart enough he was the second biggest donor to Biden's campaign behind Soros.
For crying out loud.
And there is a slew of Democratic people, senators, congresspeople, whatever, that he was the biggest campaign contributors to. So,
well, he's a cheat.
He's a cheat, but he knew how to play that game.
They should give that money back. They should say we took it.
I think
some of
them have. I don't know the exact. I'm not going to name names, but there was 4 or 5 of them who realized that this kid gave to their campaign, and they automatically said, "Here's the cash you gave us. Tell us what to do with it."
I can't. Oh, we can't find them. Right.
So it's just it's weird. I think they're playing neutral and only neutral until they figure out what really took place
with this.
Because if you watched, what was it? If you're in IndyCar, and you watched the Austin, Texas F1 race they had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, those races are real popular these days.
Yeah, but the borders or the walls for the cars
or FTX
were FTX everywhere. Yeah, everywhere.
And have they sponsored any arenas yet? That Staples Center is now,
I think,
Crypto.com.
Yeah, it's Crypto.com,
arena.
But I think that they, on the kicker boards, it was FTX all over the place. I've seen it multiple places. I was like, wow, that's weird that these guys are advertising that heavy. But
and now you mentioned Ponzi scheme. What is the difference between what this guy did, what a bank would do, and what Bernie Madoff was
Bernie
doing?
Madoff just flat out stole money, period, in the story.
He didn't try to reinvest it in something and lost his shirt. He just went out and bought a boat for himself.
Yeah. Even people said that there was no way for what he said he did trading-wise. There were people who stepped up and actually said, hey, this is a fraud because there's not enough option contracts in the world to do what he said he was doing.
Right.
So there were all kinds of flags on Bernie.
So at least when you're trying to reinvest and trying to make a quick buck, your plan, whether it's faulty or not and whether you're a criminal or not, is to say, I'm going to at least make up enough money to pay these people back at some point.
Yes.
What Bernie Madoff was doing
was just took it.
I'm just going to take it, and rather than I'm just going to get another patsy on the hook.
Exactly. On the backside to come in, get more money, and then he paid those out. But
Bill
he also
wants his money. Well, let me take it from Fred and give it to Bill, and then I needs to find someone else so I can pay Fred back.
Exactly. But Madoff also used this thing like, oh, you don't want to invest with us. And it was kind of the head games in a sense they were saying. But Madoff went into, you're talking huge dollars, international, people in Europe, old money. He took it all and ran with it. Man. Just crazy stuff. But
he had to know at some point the cards were going to crash.
You would think, but
and if not on him, then on his
somebody,
family or somebody, you know.
So bizarre. But on this FTX stuff, the difference between a crypto and the bank, even though they're kind of trying to do the same thing, the difference is this. The bank is FDIC insured. They're regulated by the feds. You have $1 in your pocket that you could carry around with you. Whether that's worth 92 cents for that dollar or worth a true dollar, that's a whole nother question.
That's an inflation question.
But you have that. You have something tangible. Whereas crypto, you got nothing. You got maybe on your phone, you got a little wallet that says, hey, you have,
a line of code that is way too long for me to remember.
Exactly.
I have to copy and paste it.
Yeah. So again, that's the difference. And I'm not going to say it's bad. The idea is perfect for a digital currency. I mean, the governments would love this because there's no way that you could tax evade because they know exactly what you got.
Every transaction is
matched
marked
to a T.
Yeah.
So it's just weird on how this went down and how mainstream financial is taking this as kind of like, oh, yeah, we're looking into it.
Right.
It's huge.
And I guess the problem being that it is so new, it is so unregulated that these people thought that
they'd get away with
making risky investments. And, now you called it a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
I mean, we can stand by that.
Like J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon runs J.P. Morgan. He's had a very negative attitude on this the last probably 4 or 5 years. There's tons of people
he's a bank, and he's like,
a bank, so you got to take that with a grain of salt because he's like, hey, this isn't good. Put your money over here.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of different people who have now said, Mark Cuban, there was an interview with Cuban, who this kid hit up Cuban to see if he would help fund him in some way or shape. Cuban said, I didn't like the conversation.
Oh, boy.
Just because he goes, flags were flying all over.
Oh, boy.
There were compliance issues that he wasn't aware of.
This is Shark Tank, Mark Cuban. Yeah. He hears pitches every day, I bet.
Yeah, and I think who's the other guy who was the pitch man for FTX? That's the other question is, I think, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Giselle. I forget who the laundry list of people who
they lose their money?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are probably lawsuits against them now because if this turns out that it really is a Ponzi scheme,
they could be liable as pitchmen.
As pitchmen.
Wow.
Yeah. So
watch this space. But, the crypto world, it is the Wild West. We talk about it several times on this show. It is going to be taxed starting next year on your taxes.
There's 1099s will be sent out for everything.
Right.
And that starts next year. But here's the tax angle on this. So let's say that you got crypto, you got FTX. It's basically going to end up being worthless. You get to take a write-off if it is in a brokerage account, not IRAs or pension plans or anything like that, but true brokerage accounts. Go look at your crypto. And the theory is you're probably down 60% in even Bitcoin this year. Maybe sell it. Take a tax loss.
Okay.
Don't rebuy it for 31 days. On the 31st day, buy it back. The odds on it popping over 31 days are probably slim, especially with all this going on. But what that does is you will then be able to capture either a short-term capital loss or a long-term capital loss. Capital losses offset any capital gains, and if you don't use it this year, you get $3,000 against your ordinary income.
Right.
So it knocks $3,000 off. And let's just say that we've had cases $300,000, $350,000 in losses that are sitting in brokerage accounts. Sell it, take the loss, reset the deck. You can either then take maybe a short-term approach to the market or sit in cash to see what really transpires. But you'll be able to harvest that loss and use it to your advantage down the road.
And this is what wealthy people do all the time.
All day.
They have tax guys that they probably have on speed dial. You're probably one of them.
There's a few.
And we need to do some, let me sell the losers, get the tax break.
Exactly. Especially this year. The last 5 years or so, 4 years, the markets were racing away. You couldn't find a loser. You just throw a dartboard and it was always a winner.
It was a winner.
Yeah. But now you got some losers. You got some heavy losers on your brokerage statements.
So like if I went, E-Trade, that's a brokerage account. I go to E-Trade and I look and see what we got in there and I tell my wife, look, whether it's Target or Tesla or Disney or whatever, we got a stock and it's down $1,000 on the year. We could sell that, wait 31 days, buy it back, and then just say, we're losing. We lost money on it.
You lost money, but now it's a realized loss that sits on the books. And as long as you are alive, you get that deduction.
And starting this year, we can do that with our crypto as well.
Well, yeah, you could do it with crypto because, again, crypto, even though it's a hypothetical currency, it's looked at the IRS looks at it as an asset. So it's either a gain or a loss.
And when you start talking about assets like that, when it comes to stocks, I'm looking at capital gains. When it comes to crypto, is that looked at as capital gains and capital losses, or is that looked at as income?
Capital gain, capital loss, identical to a stock.
Gotcha.
So if you bought Bitcoin for $10,000, it's now trading at 55. That's a huge loss. But if you bought it for 10 and it's worth 20, that's a huge capital gain.
And this is where Jeff Zufall comes in. This is where we need a tax person to tell us the difference and to help us make sure that we're getting the best tax rate possible. Capital gains is taxed at what?
15 or 20%. So if you the average person is at 15%. Mm-hmm. If your income exceeds, I believe it's $317,000. Don't quote me on that. You jump to a 20%. So think of it this way: if you're normal, you trade a couple $100,000 a year, you're safe. But let's say you had that one big hit on Bitcoin, you made $500,000 plus your income for the year, you're now at 20.
Yep. But capital gains is capped at 20%. My current
could go to 36.5.
My current tax rate is 24%.
Yes.
So I would rather have capital gains payments, regardless of if it's in the top tier, because I am saving 4 to 9% right there on my taxes. And that's the whole point. I could keep more of what's mine if I just did this in a more strategic way.
Yes.
That's where Jeff comes in, senior tax strategist and advisor with Capital Advisory Group. 636-394-5524. Give Jeff a call because all of this, I don't care if you're in crypto, I don't care if you're in stocks, I don't care if you're in a retirement. All of us have something going on.
Exactly.
So we all need help sorting it out. Give Jeff a call. CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com is the website. 636-394-5524 is the phone number. Call now and just get an appointment on the books.
We'll call you Monday.
You'll call them. They'll call you back Monday and say, hey, why don't you come in on Tuesday? All right. Let's go to commercial break. We'll wrap the show up. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall on the Big 550 KTRS.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
KTRS back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, and we just spent a bunch of time, Jeff, talking about the crypto collapse of FTX and kind of just getting into what crypto is. Basically, we could probably do, a whole week's worth of shows. Just trying to break down crypto. But
it's kind of the new territory, if you want to call it that.
So technically, it's a currency. But it's treated like a capital gain.
Yes, IRS looks at it as a capital gain, capital loss, short term, long term, and it's from the purchase or the sale date. Technically, you're holding.
Same way a stock works, same way a mutual fund works.
Identically.
Here's a question that just came to me. What happens if I decide to come to you and say I want to invest in gold, or I want to invest in the yen? The Japanese currency.
Mm-hmm.
Can people do that? Is that considered income, or is that also considered?
The yen side would be a currency, but again, at the end of the day, it could be a capital gain depending upon how you purchase it. And anything else, if you bought gold is capital gain, capital loss calculation. But in some situations, that is considered precious metals. So it actually has a higher tax rate than what a true capital gain rate is.
So capital gains 15%, higher bracket, it goes up to 20%, but it's capped there.
Yeah.
What are precious metals?
So it actually would fall in like artwork and weird stuff like that, collectibles. So it actually will jump to the highest tax rate out there, ordinary income.
So it does,
depending upon where you're at. Yeah.
Goes with ordinary income.
So it's no different if you're trading in Monets and spent $30 million for a picture. That's not a capital gain. It is actually a collectible.
So I buy a Monet for $1 million, and then I sell it for $10 million. whatever I make off that, that's
income. Going to be ordinary income.
Ordinary
$9
income.
million ordinary income, whatever your tax bracket is, or
which
the highest.
would be the highest.
Yeah,
almost 40%.
Yes.
So okay, I mean,
yeah,
that's how. But people don't normally, when it comes to currency, people don't normally make big loads of money by investing in.
Typically, the traders do, hedge funds do, because they know the game. They have access to instant information,
and they can probably buy in bulk.
Exactly, and they're buying in bulk. The average individual, unless you know currencies and you're a commodities trader, most people will shy away from that in a heartbeat. It's too hard to lose money or get hit quickly by trying to make that trade, and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. So when it comes to crypto, it's treated as what would you call it? A commodity?
Hard asset.
Hard asset.
Yeah.
Assets.
Yeah. Asset.
Hard asset. So just like a mutual fund,
absolutely no different. Again, the question on the tax return that it's asked 3 years. I think this year, 2022 tax return, they're going to get a little bit more detailed, but it basically said, "Hey, have you ever participated in digital currency?" Period. It's a yes or no response. And to make sure, if you have dabbled in it, just answer yes. It's a trick question. And the trick question is when some of these guys, like, now we got FTX going down, bankruptcy. BlockFi basically is now saying that they're probably, I think Wednesday, Thursday, probably going to claim bankruptcy. And the Genesis, the two twins, they suspended trading. So the issue is if this really goes the way it's going to go, when they go to bankruptcy court, guess what? If you say, hey, I never participated, I didn't have anything to do with it, but yet your name shows up in bankruptcy as a creditor, you got an issue.
Yeah. So that the fallout from FTX, which we just spent last segment talking about, it's starting to hit the other crypto.
It could be.
Is this like a domino effect?
Unfortunately, it will be. And that's what they're saying. Now, whether the feds are going to back it, that's a whole other question because they really didn't have any regulation. Those guys don't pay into, like any funds. Like Missouri has the, whatever you want to call it, for life insurance, long-term care, like a guarantee, a fund, if you want to call it. So when you make premium payments, a piece of your premium goes to the state of Missouri, and they will back, if one of these companies goes down,
bankrupt,
they'll back it for you to a degree.
Yeah.
These guys have nothing of that. There's no, I think it's SPIC, which is the securities world, saying, hey, if the broker-dealer goes down, these guys will step in as a government agency.
That doesn't exist in crypto yet.
So don't know what's going to take place, but the question is how far and how wide does this go? And that'll be determined over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So brave new world, Wild West. And it does seem like maybe this might be the one that breaks the back of this very new world of crypto.
It could be, resets it, and also this could be the beginning of the fall in a sense of pushing us into a true recession, because what that'll do is have people reel back a little bit. They take a hit on this. They're going to be a little bit more naive from their true investing patterns. So that's the question of the day. We don't know.
And maybe, actually, Bitcoin has wildly gone up and down. And
all over the place, yes.
2 years ago, it was at 6,000, and then it was at 60,000, and it's crazy. Maybe this actually, because the Japanese yen doesn't go up and down like that. Yeah. The dollar doesn't go up and down like that. Maybe this is what makes it stabilize.
Hopefully.
And, I don't know who would keep investing in it if it didn't have the potential of skyrocketing. But maybe this is the beginning of having a stabilized Bitcoin that you can just kind of
actually use. There was a report. It was a Wall Street Journal. It was maybe a year or two ago, and I remember reading it. And it was a gentleman that lived on Wall Street, and his theory was he wrote a whole topic on his walk home to go to his apartment. He was going to use cryptocurrency for everything. I think he said, like, when he walked down the street, his pizza cost him $10,000 because they couldn't get the conversion rate right.
Right.
But this is in the early stages of it, and maybe, he got a 6-pack and it was like $1,000. He said it was really nuts because nobody knew how to use it when they were trying to use it as an actual currency.
Right.
So I think everybody's in it today, not from the currency aspect, but, hey, I heard my buddy made $50,000 just by being here, and that's what everybody's trying to do.
I saw stories of people who they bought Bitcoin years ago.
Oh, yeah.
to purchase things illegally.
Well, that too. Yeah.
On the black market. And when they realized that crypto skyrocketed, they were like, well, I bought something for 10 Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And now each Bitcoin is worth $60,000. The change I got back from that sale is probably worth, $5,000-6,000.
Yeah.
So they're going through their email accounts trying to figure out where that all went.
Or people that tried storing it on their own back in the early days and then chucked the hard drive and then realized that it was embedded in that hard drive. That's where it was. So they had to go back and try and find it.
Going through the landfill.
Yeah,
down at the
trying
dump.
to find the $200,000 hard drives.
Right. So one other thing that I wanted to ask you about before we got out of here, really interesting conversation. And it seems like crypto is speculation. It seems like the stock market a lot of times is speculation. What do we know about – I'm just asking this one cold. That story this week that what was it, Eli Lilly? Mm-hmm. Someone impersonated them on Twitter and said that insulin was going to be, given out for $1. Yeah. Which would be amazing.
Be very amazing, believe me.
Right now, I think it's $100.
Yes,
a shot. But it caught a fake person on Twitter who got that blue check mark, said this, pretended to be Eli Lilly, and all of a sudden their stock went down. Yeah. And is there any, what? Give me an interpretation on that.
Basically, that's somebody just out there messing with it. At the end of the day, the stock should come back once they realize that it was a fake announcement. But anybody that was sharp enough to be paying attention to that and see the stock drop could jump in and buy it, technically. So the question is was that done with a malicious attempt, which is put a bad news report out there, have the stock go down so that you as that individual doing it could buy it themselves. Yeah. But all those trades are recorded, so if the feds really wanted to figure out who was buying that day, they could figure it out pretty quick.
Oh, if the guy impersonating Eli Lilly went back and bought a bunch of shares after it tanked,
they could prove who bought it, what time they bought it, and they could say, hey, that's not in your normal trading pattern, and play that game. That's how they got Phil Mickelson back in the day when he played golf with some guys over a weekend in Vegas, and then on Tuesday he made $10 million in a trade. They go, that's not your trading pattern.
Insider trading.
Yes.
I'm guessing Martha Stewart got popped too.
Same. Well, hers was just she wouldn't respond to him, so they tossed her in jail because she wouldn't talk to him.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Well, that's fair.
So whether that was insider trading or not, we don't know.
Right.
She just refused to talk.
It just does. It seems like Wall Street and the stock market is knee-jerk reactions sometimes.
Sometimes it is. It really is. And that's the problem is that's what the SEC's job is, to try to keep that stuff out of the way. I mean, to the best that they can, but you have these imposters that show up, or you have people that try to front-run stocks. Front-running basically is you throw some news out there, get the stock to drop, you're buying, you're selling, whatever the case may be, for your profit only. And most of those people end up getting caught because they're average people. There's some reports we'll talk here shortly on where our friends in the government, both sides of the aisle, are trading in stuff that they shouldn't be trading in.
Yeah. So will they get punished?
No.
They never seem.
They never seem to get punished, but
like they do.
Yeah.
But
that's a whole nother element that it's kind of the status quo. You kind of take it from there. So.
Yeah. And again, Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor. Let's break down that title. Senior Tax Strategist. He can help you with your taxes. Make sure that you keep more in your pocket rather than going out to the federal government and do it all legally.
Yes.
And then the wealth advising, he can take a look at your retirement. Where are you sitting? Do you need to be more risky? Is it time to pull back a little bit? And put the two hands together and say, you're going to retire in 5 to 7 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. Can we start doing things now to lessen your tax burden?
Yeah, that'll help you down the road.
Because if you defer your taxes to a later day, I'll worry about it later.
Could be worse.
It could be later. You have to worry about it at some point. And the idea is to get ahead of it by 5, 7, 10 years.
Yes.
And keep checking it.
Because it's going to change. It's going to change all the time. I mean, maybe the next 2 years we're okay. Now, apparently Republicans
gridlock.
have taken that seat. But 3 years from now, it'll probably change.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. And you want to have somebody, a buddy, someone that you trust, someone that you know, kind of explain it to you so that when we make a decision, well, I agree with that, Jeff. That makes sense to me. Let's try it. Yeah. You know what you're getting into. So, and having a conversation. We did our taxes in April, and then we visited again over the summer, and then we're going to visit here shortly. To figure out open enrollment. And it's an ongoing conversation. It's a conversation you should have every time you get paid.
Yes.
Every time you look at your paycheck, you should
look
say,
at your paycheck.
Am I still on the right track? So Jeff Zufall is here for you. 636-394-5524. Keep what's yours. CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com is the website. The show is Keep What's Yours. The book, it's Keep What's Yours. You can go to the website and get a free copy of the book. Dog ear a couple pages, bring it into Jeff and say, I want to try to implement X, Y, and Z from page, 19, 20, and 21. And Jeff can do that for you. So you need somebody to help you out with it. Just because you got a great idea, I said earlier in the show, once you put the math to it.
Might not be such a great idea.
Might be a terrible idea.
And you go, no, don't do that.
In my case, it always seems like my great ideas fall apart when I start putting the math to it. Jeff can do the math for you and figure out, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And will this get me through the next 5, 10, 15?
Yes.
Will this get me through retirement? So give Jeff a call one more time, 636-394-5524. Keep what's yours. Jeff, thanks so much.
You betcha. Thank you. See you next week.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com.